Ni hao, hello, namaste, hola, assalamu alaikum, selamat, privet, namaskar, hola, bonjour, and CHLUMU, Earthlings. I'm David E. Ballard, aka New Dave, aka the Anunnaki Ambassador, and welcome to episode 1 of the New Dayve Experiment. For lack of a better term, I'm calling NDE a one-man variety show because I'm usually going to be the only person on it. And I've also designed it to be a variety show, a way for me to share with you all the various things and activities that mostly occupy the time I am rapidly burning through in my current physical form here on this sometimes pretty cool, but mostly pretty nasty planet. And just so you know what you're getting into, here's a little background info on yours truly. I'm an award-winning writer, producer, actor with over 200 hours of film and TV credits as a writer-producer for such networks as Bravo, Discovery, ESPN, History, LMN, Science Channel, and TLC, among others, and over 60 film, TV, and commercial credits as an actor. I also do stand-up comedy here and there, and when I'm not working in showbiz, I mostly make money as a guitar and piano teacher. I grew up in the Bay Area in marvelous Marin County, and after graduating from UC Berkeley with a BA in Spanish, just to make sure I'd never have a real job, I also studied filmmaking at the sadly now defunct San Francisco Art Institute. And before moving to Los Angeles to get into the entertainment industry, I worked as a copy editor and staff writer in the features section of the San Francisco Chronicle. As a musician, I have played with various bands in the United States, Latin America, and Europe, and have also licensed some of my original songs for use in TV, film, and advertising projects. And as a lifelong student of spirituality, I'm also an honorary Anunnaki ulema, as well as an initiate of Ekankar, Sanmat, or Science of Spirituality, and SGI Buddhism. And I have also completed the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. Side note, I also went to a few Debtors Anonymous meetings at one point in my life, but I found them to be too depressing. If you think alcoholics have trouble coping with life, try hanging out with people who can't pay their bills. Also, unlike alcoholics and drug addicts who love talking about how messed up their lives are, people with money problems can't get through more than a couple of sentences before bursting into tears. Also, the snacks at AA meetings are infinitely better than the snacks at Debtors Anonymous meetings. I guess because, they can't afford any good ones. Probably. I've never been married, but have had 4 major long-term relationships with women who were either too sane or too crazy for me. And at this point in my life, never say never, but I've pretty much resigned myself to going solo for what's left of this particular incarnation. And I suppose you could think of me as kind of a spiritually awakened, creative weirdo who is really only interested in being of service to others while hopefully accumulating no further karma in my life, good or bad. And finally, the reason I call myself New Dave is because after I got sober, I really did undergo a spiritual transformation and did actually feel like a new person. So I thought that I would adopt the New Dave stage name, nom de plume, to always remind myself of that very difficult, but ultimately very beneficial life change. So that's me in a nutshell. And now here's a rundown of the 7 individual segments that will be making up each episode of the New Dayve Experiment, a one-man variety show. Segment 1 is called Alien Almanac and is all about the past, present, and future influence of extraterrestrials on humanity. I've been researching this subject professionally pretty much nonstop for the last 20 years or so. So I've got an objectively very large amount of research material lying around that I'll be doling out in user-friendly chunks in each segment. Segment 2, pitch of the day, will be me literally pitching one of the hundreds of projects that I've created over my many, many years in showbiz. Segment 3, how to be a human being, is sort of like spiritual tips and tricks and perspectives on life that I've accumulated over the years that I think might be of interest to somebody out there. Segment 4 is track attack, and that's going to be me playing one of my songs that I've recorded over the years. Maybe talk about the story behind it a little bit, but it's just it's just part of my part of the variety show. Let's see, we got segment 5, New Dayve's Faves, which is just me talking about something that I actually buy and I think would be potentially useful in your life. And hopefully I'll be able to get into some shameless, affiliate marketing with that down the road. Let's see. Okay, segment 6, spiritual boot camp. Again, sort of like how to be a human being, but that's more like life skills. The spiritual boot camp is going to be more like esoteric examinations of meditation and other ways of getting into the inner or higher planes. I have a pretty fair amount of experience with that too. And let's see, segment 7 is going to be visual treasures. One of the things I like to do is walk around with my iPhone and just take weird pictures of things. Usually they're pretty much none of them have actual people in them. I just sort of look at the world around me and try and create some kind of weird abstract, almost painting like image using just a standard iPhone. I kind of like compared to other cameras, it's pretty lo-fi, but I really like the images that iPhones create. So that's gonna be the show, and I hope you find it to be entertaining, enlightening, and who knows, maybe even a little bit educational. And without any further ado, let's take it away to episode 1, segment 1, Alien Almanac. CHLUMU. Aliens, we're nothing but aliens, mixed together with a little caveman. Okay, CHLUMU Earthlings. New Dayve here, the Anunnaki Ambassador, and here goes our first Alien Almanac. And there's so much to go over. I mean, it's kind of endless how much information there is about the Anunnaki and extraterrestrials that I have, but I thought I'd start today with this subject because you see this a lot on the internet. You'll see people posting images of ancient Sumerian sculptures, and there's a guy either with kind of wearing a fish on his head, or he's got like an eagle's head and wings. So I'm going to go into what that's all about, and you'll see them holding like a pine cone in one hand and what appears to be like a purse or a water bucket in the other hand. And I've seen this so many times on the internet, and everybody goes, "Oh, why is he carrying a purse?" So I'm going to explain that today because, in the Maximillien de Lafayette library, he goes very specifically into what those beings were and what they're all about. So, without any further ado, here we go. Those beings were called the Apkallu, or the Abkallu, and they were the 7 divine sages who built human civilization, or at least, helped to organize its building. Think of them, if the head of the Anunnaki were sort of like the CEO and the, COO and vice president, all this. These guys were, yeah, well, they were either like vice presidents or project managers. They were sort of, each given their own division, if you will, and they were the head of that division on Operation Planet Earth, if you will. And so, yeah, this is what we're getting into today. So the Apkallu. So first of all, the Apkallu were the, as I said, the kind of underlings. They were, senior on Earth pretty much, but they were still the underlings of the rulers of the Anunnaki. And who are the Anunnaki? Okay, so the Anunnaki are the gods referred to in Sumerian texts and all other subsequent ancient pantheons. They started it all. No matter what ancient religion you're talking about, no matter what gods you're talking about, they're all actually referring back to the original quote-unquote gods, which were the Anunnaki. And so they are advanced extraterrestrial beings from the planet Ashtari in the Aldebaran system, and they created Earth and really the whole solar system as a science experiment. Approximately 400, well, they created the Earth, 4.5 billion years ago, but they came to Earth 450,000 years ago to finally see what had happened with this science experiment. Their primary activities included mining Earth's resources and genetically engineering Neanderthal man and Homo sapiens from Homo erectus. And the last Anunnaki left Earth around 3500 BC, leaving behind the highly advanced Egyptian civilization as the last remnant of the Anunnaki society. And the reason you see these sculptures where they have, a big image of a god, with, graphically, dimensionally much bigger than the humans around them, is not only because obviously, that's one way to show that someone is superior to someone is just showing them as physically bigger, but they actually were and are physically bigger. They're physically massive compared to humans. They range in height from 8 to 10 feet. And so that's another reason that the carving showed them as being, bigger than humans, because they were much bigger. Modern historians often dismiss this as symbolic hierarchical scaling, which, as I said, yes, that's true, but it was actually also a literal depiction of how big they are, or were and are. So, of course, if you're a, Bronze Age goat herder, a person that's 8-10 feet tall is going to come off pretty much as a god, So, so getting into these carvings, which is, you see these all the time. These were with such common symbology of the time. So, what do these objects actually mean? What is the deal with these things? So, first of all, it does look like a purse, but I mean, theoretically it could be used as a purse, but basically it's a leather water bucket. These are, pretty much the thermos bottles or the water bottles of, today. If you're in the desert, you need to carry water around, you either have a goat skin or, one of these leather buckets. So that was called the anala, anala. In the other hand, they hold a pine cone like subject or object, and that's called the lagishimar. And so what exactly is going on with these things? Well, let's find out. So the anala, not just a water bottle, although it was used to carry water, and it could be used to carry other things too. You could carry solid things in it too, like a purse, but mainly it's, for water. So this is called an anala or a bandudu. It's a specialized bag or bucket. And in terms of the symbology of these carvings that you see all over in the ancient Middle East, it was a symbol for the god or the Anunnaki, you know, super advanced alien carrying the water of life, or holy water, which was you know, symbolic of life, because obviously no water, no life. And the water is also used for purification rituals, for healing, and in other sacred rituals where um, you know, would pour, just like we do now. You know, like if you baptize a baby, they drop a few drops of holy water on their forehead, and that's, you know, consecrating them in the body of Christ or whatever. So same thing back there. They'd use water for those similar kind of blessing type ceremonies. And yeah, so it's just, if you see that as an ancient Bronze Age goat herder, you see a bucket of water, you think, oh, life, you know, so you're not going to die of thirst. So the opposite of death is life. So also in these carvings, you see them holding, here's the water bucket, here's the pine cone, which is not actually a pine cone, but I'll get into that in a minute. So what are they doing with this bucket, and what's the deal with this little pointy thing? So the third object is the tree of life. And the Anunnaki use the tree of life to symbolize the female or passive energy of the universe, in the same way that the yin yang symbol does in Asian cultures. So in this case, the tree would be the yin, that's the female force, and then this thing would be the yang. It's the thing that goes into, it penetrates the, you know, the positive energy is penetrating the negative energy, if you will. And the tree of life also represented the DNA blueprint of all living things on Earth. And we'll get into that too. The Apkallu were the genetic engineers who manipulated this DNA to create Homo sapiens. They weren't the ones who invented this process, but once it was invented, and again, I'll get into that. Sorry about, you know, having to get caught up on all this information, but got to start somewhere. So once this process was perfected, they oversaw it. They were the project engineers or project managers. So this thing is the Lagi Shimar, is not a pine cone, although it does look like it. It's the spathe of the male date palm. And Lagi Shimar, or Lagi Zulum in Sumerian, is the date palm, male date palm. So Lagi means spathe, and Zulum means date, and Gishimar means date palm. Therefore, the thing that looks like a pine cone is not a pine cone. It is, in fact, the spathe of the male date palm, which contains the pollen that fertilizes the female date palm. So if you go back to, you know, elementary school biology, you know, you got the male, you know, with the pollen, and the female has the pistil that, you know, accepts the pollen. A spathe is a modified leaf surrounding the spadix of a flowering plant, and a familiar example of this formation is the calla lily. So there you see that. So that's a spathe. That little, you know, they call these little boy plants for a reason. So that's, and then this white thing is the same as this thing here, around here. So the Anunnaki used this, the spathe, to symbolize the male or active energy of the universe, and used the tree of life to symbolize the female or passive energy of the universe. As I said, same way that the yin yang symbol does. And why did they choose this? Because the date palm was and is this ubiquitous plant in the desert. You know, they would, you know, eating dates was how they would stay alive. So the concept of of this being symbolic of life itself, like water, is very easy to understand under that same concept. Symbolically speaking, it's like if we in this country used corn to, and we do, we use a corn plant to show that, oh, there's fertility and food and, bounteous quantities of food. So, as I said, the Apkallu were project managers, and they served underneath the leadership of the Anunnaki. So here's how the Anunnaki leadership structure, or I'm kind of likening it to a corporate structure for modern times, so people can kind of understand that, it's not just a royal family, where the king is in charge of every absolute thing. He's a king with two sons, and that goes down from there. So Anu was the chairman of the board, for lack of a better term. He was the supreme ruler on their home world, Ashtari. Enlil was the oldest son, and he was the commander. He was the lord of the sky. That's literally what his name means. He was the commander of Earth operations overall, and he oversaw the mining and the administration of the whole project in general. His younger brother, Enki, was, we would call, the chief operating officer, or he's the guy that really got his hands dirty. And his name means Lord of the Earth or Waters. And he was the chief scientist and genetic engineer, and he managed the Abzu. And Abzu just means water, like the oceans and the lakes, like anything that had to do with water. And we'll see how he became other, water-related gods later. And as stated earlier, the Apkallu were the technical advisors to humanity, the project managers. They were I guess you could say, if these guys were like the generals or the joint chiefs of staff, these guys were like maybe colonels. They were in the field actually getting stuff done. Sorry to mix the metaphor, but it's a kind of a unique situation. So the Apkallu would be sent to deal with humans and just show them basically how to do everything. The Anunnaki taught humanity how to do everything from, how do you go from being a hunter-gatherer, 10, 15,000 years ago to building a super advanced civilization for the time like Sumeria. It just doesn't make sense that, you could just make these tremendous leaps of, creativity and productivity without some help from somewhere. And again, this is all written down in these ancient tablets that have been found in the Middle East for over 100 years now. So the Anunnaki needed intermediaries to teach their newly engineered humanity how to build civilization. So Enlil and Enki appointed 7 divine sages known as the Apkallu to fulfill this task. And the Apkallu oversaw the introduction of writing, mathematics, agriculture, architecture, fine arts, and even magic to their human helpers. And in modern terms, they served as the general contractors for the Anunnaki's grand project on Earth. So again, general manager, project manager, general contractor, you get it. So when they started doing this, well, actually, why don't we leave it there? Because I'm trying to keep each segment to about 10 minutes. So let's leave it there. Just know that next time you see this thing on the internet, you'll know that these guys are called Apkallu, and that's the spathe of a male date palm. This is a water bucket, and Anunnaki really tall, so I'm just going to leave it there for now, and I'll leave the rest of the story of this particular story for the next episode. But for now, I think that's a good sort of introduction to the Anunnaki civilization. It's not perfect, but again, I'm just getting started on this show, so please forgive me if I'm not as slick as some other people you might see on YouTube. But I'm just trying to get started. So until the next time on the Alien Almanac, I'm going to leave by saying CHLUMU. Is it just as good as bread that's sliced, or just as bad as French fried ice? Guess we're gonna find out either way. Get ready, here it comes, the pitch of the day. Okay, here we go. This is the pitch of the day. This segment is going to be about me pitching some idea that I've had in the past. It could be TV, film, some kind of digital idea. It could be
really anything, food, fashion, political ideas. Um, but today I'm going to start with kind of a cross blend, if you will, of fashion and live event, alternative martial arts league that I've been working on for a long time. So the pitch is first and foremost for, well, it's both. It's not, they're kind of, they're symbiotic in my mind. Okay. The first one is Secret Identity, which is what I'm calling my heroic couture fashion design line or house, whatever you want to call it, which is basically bringing superhero looking clothing, costumes into actual wearable fashion. So it's not just like it's inspired by Comic Con and, all the crazy superhero IP that you see everywhere for the last 20 plus years. But there's some good things that superhero costumes have. Like I've always thought that the Batman utility belt was pretty cool. But anyway, you'll see. I'm gonna play this little promo reel that I made. And part of the other part of Secret Identity is the Foam Weapon League. And this is something I've been doing for 15 plus years. Secret Identity is like a year old in terms of how long I've been working on it. But Foam Weapon League's 15 years plus, and I've done a few of these events, which is basically people dressed up. This is not fashion. This is like actual people choosing their superhero name, their character identity, and whatever their superhero powers are or their backstory. And then they meet in the circle of combat, and they fight with foam weapons, foam rubber weapons, which are realistic looking, and it can be anything. It could look like a sword. It could look like a meat cleaver. It could look like a broom. It doesn't matter, whatever the character calls for. And they wear these blood packs on their uniform and on their costumes, and artificial, red blood. And the idea is there's 3 1-minute rounds, and the first person to break 2 of their opponent's blood bags wins. The idea being that if you're in a real fight, you might be able to sustain one blow to your body, like a cut or a stab or something, or a blunt force trauma. But probably you're not going to be doing too good if you get 2 of them. So that's the general idea. Here comes the Secret Identity / Foam Weapon League promo reel. Enjoy.
Contrary to popular belief, we do need another hero. And that hero is you. Introducing Secret Identity, the first fashion house devoted to letting anyone dress the way their inner superhero deserves. And if you ever feel like seeing how far your superpowers will take you, sign up to be a warrior for the Foam Weapon League, and you'll find out soon enough.
All right, there you have it. You got ID is sort of my little catchphrase that I came up with because, it's a pretty common thing that people ask for in this country anyway, and I guess in some most civilized countries where you gotta, gain entrance to some place that's restricted. So that's the little slogan I came up with. And here's the pitch deck. So here we go. I'm gonna minimize myself here. So, Secret Identity, the new era of heroic couture, and these are the little logos. We got Secret Identity logo and the Foam Weapon League logo. You got ID. There's a slogan. So the idea is, as I said, comic book hero inspired, starting at the top with you can order bespoke, evening wear. Just you can go really all out. This could cost, probably going to be the high end line is going to be thousands of dollars, like $5,000 to get somebody to make this for you. according to your actual measurements. Then we go down a notch, the pret-a-porter, I guess you would say, ready to wear, more, it's still formal wear, but off the rack, various sizes. This obviously be kind of a limited rollout at first because as I'm learning, it's pretty expensive to make anything in the world, but fashion is there's a lot of labor involved and that's why things cost so much because it's very specific little minute little things you got to do to make this stuff look that way. Okay, and then we're going down in price point. Uh Business wear, still, pretty nicely tailored, very nicely tailored. Again, who's superhero inspired. Um and again, we're looking at, maybe 1,000, you know, or so for a whole outfit. Now we're getting into the more day wear, walking around town wear, sub 1,000. And again, this is, pretty formal, but it's got more utilitarian things. As I was saying earlier about Batman's utility belt, I just like, in any clothes, I love having lots of pockets to put stash stuff in. Then we're getting into more kind of, this is be like sportswear, simpler, more knits, things like that, but still, very um, uh, design forward, graphic, very colors and cuts and shapes. And then we're getting even kind of more, this would be like, going to, uh, if you're out and about traveling, going out at night, maybe to not the greatest part of town, you want to have stuff ready to go. Again, a lot of pockets, uh, giant shoulders, because why not? They look cool. And then this would be when you're back at home, after you've arrived back at your secret hideout. The stuff you can put on, just hang out. And, granted, this looks pretty, I don't know. That's designed to be comfortable. I don't know how tight you like your comfy clothes. Some people like it tight, some people like it a little looser, but we got the whole line going from the very tippy top couture to just sweats, basically superhero sweats. And this would be more, again, workwear, but for uh more out in the world type construction or uh, urban planning or anything like that. You can go out to a business meeting in this at the work site, something like that. And then finally, if you really want the full on an actual superhero suit, again, based on your own ideas, your character name, your character qualities, superpowers, whatever you want to, and add in. This is really the top of the line in terms of price. This is going to be like $10,000 probably when all is said and done, 5 to 10. And obviously, there's a pretty decent turnaround time because it takes a long time to put this together. But again, the whole point is this is all IP, driven. This is not we're not, using any existing IP. It's all original. And that's part of the point of Foam Weapon League too, because all these wardrobes and costumes are going to be worn. Anything that gets worn in the circle of combat is going to be after that available for sale. So, so that's the general kind of what do they call it, the flywheel effect, and then again, we're going to have specialized combat gear, which you wouldn't normally wear out. But again, if you want to buy it, if you want to become an FWL warrior, you're welcome. You will be welcome to apply. And the other thing about the Foam Weapon League is that men can fight women, and there's no weight class, there's no height, there's no nothing. Everybody's equal in the sense that it doesn't matter if you weigh 300 pounds and, and somebody else weighs 100 pounds. If, in the real world, if you both have weapons, weight is kind of taken out of it. You can stab a fat person just as easily as you can stab a skinny person. So that's kind of the beauty. It's the truly, even Steven. It's the great equalizer, as if you will. And yeah, that's the general idea. I'm creating this whole universe of fashion meets combat. Let's see, get me back up here. There I am. So yeah, that's the pitch of the day. Secret Identity meets Foam Weapon League. Obviously, this is a big endeavor. This is, I'm looking for investors. If you're interested in this, please get in touch and we can talk. All right, that has been the pitch of the day. And now, coming up next, how to be a human being. We'll see you soon.
Everybody's bound to make mistakes. Always hitting the gas instead of hitting the brakes. Is it really rain or just somebody being? Time to find out how to be a human being.
All right, welcome to the inaugural How to Be a Human Being segment of the new Dayve Experiment. This idea was originally a song that I wrote about, 15 years ago. And it was sort of a tongue-in-cheek look at the self-help movement and kind of offered up some kind of silly self-help tips. Like, if you're fat, don't drink Diet Coke, stuff like that. And before that, I've always just been interested in the concept of the fact that humanity has been around, as a civilization for about 5,000 years, since, the first civilization of Sumeria. And yet, we still don't have sort of a kind of one-size-fits-all manual for how to be a human being. The only thing that comes close, I guess, would be the Jewish tradition of having a bar mitzvah or a bat mitzvah. There's other cultures that have similar coming-of-age type rituals, but I think in general, the Jewish sort of system is pretty much the most comprehensive. Not that it's a perfect system, but at least they make an attempt to let people that have reached puberty know, like, hey, guess what? It's only going to get worse. Not worse, but, more complicated. It's going to be a lot of stuff coming down the pike here, coming right at you. So you better get ready. On the Latino culture, they got the quinceañera, but that's, just for women. And letting them know, oh, watch out, you're going to get ready to be a mom, which is fine. But what if you don't want to be a mom? Or what if you're a male Latino? Is not really they don't get to have a cool party. So there's just not a lot of objective, useful information given to people that are growing up. Parents do their best, but as I've learned by being in various, 12-step programs, you can be very rich and very screwed up. There's a ton of rich drug addicts and alcoholics. Famous people are rich and commit suicide, or whatever. There's just a lot of hurdles to get through in life. And wouldn't it be nice to have some sort of guide to how to enter adulthood and then keep going without completely screwing it up? So that is why I wrote this book, which is going to be the subject for the first How to Be a Human Being. Hey, look at that. It's called How to Be a Human Being, an instruction manual. The life manual every teen and young adult needs. Perfect gift for back to school and beyond. So if you're graduating, or if you know someone who's graduating or is about to go into college, or, just could use a little checklist for how to deal with life, you could probably do worse than buying a copy of this book. It's only $6.95, or it's free if you have Kindle Unlimited. And basically, I broke it down into 6 sectors or chunks or pieces of the pie, whatever you want to call it.
It's based on the the spectrum of light, electromagnetic energy, and you'll see this also in Eastern traditions. They assign there's chakras. There's 7 chakras in your body, or and each one has its own color. This one is 6 because I'm not including like the crown chakra. So basically it's, you start with red because, as we learn in high school physics, infrared is the lowest energy light there is, and then the highest energy is ultraviolet. So you start with the red, color red for the physical plane. There's the body. And then you go on to, orange is the next color in the spectrum. That's the emotional or astral plane. There's your little heart kind of symbol, universal symbol for emotion. Yellow signifies the mental plane, where math and science and classical music and classical sculpture, anything that looks, very symmetrical or very neat and tidy, that's kind of the mental plane. Money, of course, you need that to live. In general, green is associated with life and a light. If there are green plants in an area, that generally shows that indicates that there's water. And money is sort of like the sociological, sociocultural equivalent of water. You kind of need it to live. And then the blue, color blue, is the social plane, like how we interact with other human beings. It's pretty hard to get through life without having, other humans in your life. So there's, you need to kind of have some guidance usually when you're growing up about how to do that. And then finally, the spiritual plane is represented by the color indigo or purple, and it's represented by the yin yang symbol, which is sort of a general universal symbol of duality, male, female, passive, positive, negative energy, that sort of thing. All the stuff that sort of is over and above the mental plane and all the other stuff that makes up our life. It's religion, it's spirituality. It's just, why are we alive? Those kind of questions. So the book is designed to sort of help get you into each one of these sectors of your life in a fairly simple, straightforward manner, but also it's, kind of like a checklist. Most people kind of go through life semi-randomly, and this kind of gives you a sort of a way to just check in and see what you might be needing in your life, or maybe not needing, going back to drugs and alcohol. So that's the general idea of the book and of this segment for today, at least. And sort of a general tip that I will leave you with for how to be a human being involves the physical plane, because it's pretty hard to be a human being without one, without a body, I mean. So you can live without water for about a week. As I've learned on these various shows I've worked on, you can pretty much make it a week before you start to really kind of conk out. You live for about a month without food. Again, you're not going to be feeling too great, but you might maybe have a little organ damage or what have you. But people can live for a pretty long time without food. I read a story recently about this guy who was like 600 pounds, and he just decided to stop eating until he got down to like 200 pounds or something. So he wound up not eating for a year, and he did actually lose like 400 pounds, and he was able to survive just on water. So it's possible to live without water, but the one thing you can't live without is, take a guess, air. That's right. So you can go for a minute or two, maybe you can hold your breath for several minutes. David Blaine can hold his breath for like 15 minutes or whatever. And, gurus can do that. And people have been, pulled up from the bottom of a frozen lake and their whole body's just frozen, and they've kind of come back to life after being frozen for like half an hour or something. Those are very outside, the norm type experiences or circumstances. And generally you want to keep breathing, pretty consistently. So, and when you do breathe, one thing you do want to focus on is breathing in through your nose and out through your mouth. So don't be a mouth breather unless you're running or, you just can't, your nose is stuffed up or something, because your nose has folds in it that, more surface area, more air kind of gets into your body on its way to the lungs. And it also has a sort of a temperature regulation system, like an HVAC system for your body. It makes hot air, cooler. It makes cold air warmer. And it can also be used as a stress relief technique. If you hold your, breathe in and breathe out in a regular way for a few minutes, it'll really kind of help calm you down if you're feeling nervous or upset. The Navy SEALs teach this thing called box breathing, which is you breathe in for a count of 4, you hold it for a count of 4, you breathe out for a count of 4, and then you don't take another breath for another count of 4. So it's 4, 4, 4, 4. An alternative to that is 4, 7, 8. So you breathe in for 4, hold it for 7, breathe out for 8, and then hold it for 4 again. So that's a pretty, that's been proven scientifically. Like if you just kind of regulate your breathing that way, it can really calm down your nervous system. So that's the kind of information I'm trying to put forward in this segment. Sometimes it'll be physical, sometimes it'll be emotional based, mental, etc. You get the idea. So that's it for today's How to Be a Human Being segment. And coming up is Track Attack, where I get to share with you one of my original musical compositions that I've been working on for a long time. I've got a lot of songs backed up. So let's see what I got coming up on Track Attack.
Been writing songs since I was 21. Guess you could say I got a knack for laying words and music down. Heads up, here comes a track attack.
All right, welcome back to the new Dayve Experiment, and here we go with the very first Track Attack. And the track in question that I'm going to be playing for you today is a pretty new song for me. I wrote it maybe a couple of years ago, been working on it for a while, and I finally got it to a kind of a master quality recording, in my humble opinion. I've been playing music since I was, 16. And so it's been a long time. I've been in various bands, had a pretty semi-successful band called Sancho, which was a rock and Espanol band about 20 years ago. Got some radio airplay, got our video on TV. Did a little, a lot of shows around LA, went down to Mexico, played once down there. So, I went to the school in Spain when I was in college. I was in a house band at a restaurant there. So I've been, I've licensed some songs and stuff to movies and TV shows here and there. So it's not like I'm some super successful professional musician, but I am technically, I guess, a professional musician. I have been paid to play. And so, I also teach music, piano and guitar teacher. So I do kind of know my way around the old treble clef, little bass clef too, once in a while. But I can't really read, not a big sheet music reader, but, I can put a tab in front of me with the chord chart. I can, basically play anything at this point. So I built a house out in Joshua Tree during the pandemic a few years ago, and I was sort of inspired by that environment and, the Graham Parsons of it all, the cosmic country rock sort of vibe that, still there and will probably still remain there for the foreseeable future. So I got more into listening to and playing and writing more of kind of a country vibe. I've also always liked, along with, rock and roll and jazz, all those kind of standard American cultural touchstones, if you will. I've always liked kind of old school country, Buck Owens, Merle Haggard, as I said, Graham Parsons. It's a kind of old timey, not old timey, although some of that stuff is good too. You know, Hank Williams, of course, is sort of like he's definitely on the Mount Rushmore of country music. George Jones, just all those old classic guys. And then moving into the 60s and 70s, Jerry Reed, Glenn Campbell, even Dwight Yoakam, even into the 80s and stuff. I'm not down with modern country where they sing about pickup trucks and girls in tight jeans and drinking beer and, killing people who don't like America. That's just, to me, kind of fascistic propaganda. But old-timey, the original country music to me has always been sort of like, it's basically, I think, blues for white people. If you hear an old country song, a lot of, it's always about drinking, cheating on your mate or being cheated on by your mate, getting thrown in jail, getting shot, getting killed, coming back from the dead and telling your story. There's just, it's pretty dark stuff. Johnny Cash shot a man in Reno just to see him die. Kind of the original, kind of like hip hop. You think rappers are hard? Try going out for a night on the town with George Jones. See where you wind up or how you wind up. So anyway, this is coming up here is this song that I wrote called 6 Foot 8 Inch Bubba Brown, which is sort of my homage to Jerry Reed's, goddamn, what's that song? Amos Moses, called him Amos Moses. So it's sort of a story song, and I will let it speak for itself, but excuse me, in case you're wondering where you might be able to find it, here is the Spotify page. And new Dave, 7 monthly listeners, count them, trying to bump that up a little, but here's 6 foot 8 inch Bubba Brown. And so I'll be playing that, and then I'll come back to do a little wrap up after the song. And so I'll see you after the song. And I am working on a music video. It's so hard to do music videos. But for now, just let the music video happen in your mind. And without any further ado, ladies and gentlemen, here he comes, 6 foot 8 inch Bubba Brown.
I was minding my own business, drinking at my local bar, when I saw her dancing. She was shining like a star. To my surprise, them big brown eyes were staring right at me. So I put down my drink and went to see what I could see. She pulled me close before I knew it. We were quite a pair. Couple of dips, a couple of spins. How could I be aware that her jealous husband, Bubba Brown, was coming back from having a smoke outside, and he was ready to attack? Oh, I was beaten like a rug by 6 foot 8 inch Bubba Brown. He picked me up like I was nothing, threw me all around. Then 6 foot 8 inch Bubba Brown pulled out a Bowie knife. Bubba said, son, that's the last time you dance with my wife. That is when the wife of 6 foot 8 inch Bubba Brown jumped in yelling, killing that man. Bubba, darling, ain't the way to win. My heart that's aching, Bubba, 'cause you never dance with me. And until you do, that ain't the last man that you'll see. Well, 6 foot 8 inch Bubba Brown put down his Bowie knife and started crying like a baby, then turned to his wife, saying, I would love to, darling, but I dance like an old cow. So I jumped up and told him I'd be glad to teach him how. Oh, I was beaten like a rug by 6 foot 8 inch Bubba Brown. He picked me up like I was nothing, threw me all around. Then 6 foot 8 inch Bubba Brown's feet finally came to life. Bubba said, son, that's the last time you dance with my wife. Bubba and the missus 6'8" Bubba Brown. He picked me up like I was nothing, threw me all around. Then 6'8" Bubba Brown's feet finally came to life. Bubba said, son, thanks to you, I now dance with my wife.
All right, cowboys and cowgirls. Hope you like that. I've actually gotten some pretty good feedback on it too. I joined the Nashville Songwriters Association a little while back, and I sent it into one of the guys, the actual real volunteer, professional songwriters that volunteer to listen to people's songs and give them feedback. And the guy said, yeah, it's, pretty much no notes, you just need to kind of produce it. But that was pretty encouraging. I've written literally hundreds of songs, and they aren't all winners, but once in a while, you kind of get it right. And again, I'm not saying this is the Nobel Prize winning or even Grammy winning song, but who knows? I think it's important to just kind of keep going and do stuff when the when the muse hits and gives you an idea. You might as well just get it out and out of the ether and into the world and see what happens. So I'm just going to keep doing that, and we'll keep having play a new track every week. Not always going to be country. It's just I got a lot of songs kind of just waiting around to be shared with the world. So thanks for listening to that, if you did hang in there for that long. And coming up, next segment will be New Dayve's Faves, where I share with you something that I actually use in my life that I think you might like or enjoy or find useful. All right, so see you then. Bye.
I buy a lot of stuff on the internet. Sometimes it comes in waves, and when it's great, I add it to the list of New Day's faves.
Welcome to New Dayve's Faves. This is the first New Dayve's Faves because this is the first episode. And New Dayve's Faves is basically what it sounds like. The things that I like, which are basically, in general, consumer items that you can buy somewhere. This one I found on Amazon, and I must say, I'm not pro Amazon, but I still use it. I think Jeff Bezos is, maybe not the devil incarnate, but one of his minions. Basically, I don't think there should be any billionaires, but I'll get into that in a different episode or a different segment later on. But yeah, so this is any kind of thing that you can buy. Usually, some kind of consumer product that I like and use. And who knows, maybe someday I'll figure out how to do affiliate marketing, and maybe I can make some do-re-mi off of this. But for now, this is a public service announcement. And so without any further ado, the New Dayve's fave for today is Maude's Half Calf Instant Coffee. I like coffee. Medical science says that it's actually good to drink coffee. Not too much, but they say a couple of cups a day is actually good for all kinds of things. So aside from that, I just like it. I like the taste. I like the fact that it does give me a little bit of a buzz, gives you a little energy, but I don't like feeling all, janky. That caffeine kind of jitters thing, not for me, even though I have done a lot of crazy drugs in the past. I'm not so much into, feeling too out of it in any way, either too far up or too far down. So I found that half calf coffee kind of does the trick.
And this is, I've been tried a few of them, and I used to have one of those Keurig machines, but I always felt like a, environmental terrorist when I use those little cups. And so these come in these little packages, which, I'm sure they're, not exactly environmentally friendly either, but at some point, it's either that or make coffee, a whole thing of coffee. And I don't know. For me, it's too much. I just like using these guys. I usually use 2 for the first couple of cups. And then I usually tail off to 1 little package per cup. And then let's see if there's anything interesting here. Small batch roasted, half caffeine. It's medium roast. And yeah, it's just it's good stuff. So like I said, you can use more than 1 per cup, but kind of a, like I said, two little packages, then tail off to 1, and you get 24 of these little guys per box, and it's $15. So that's pretty good, when you think about, as you go to Starbucks, they charge you like $5 for like a medium sized coffee. So let's say I use 2, so I'll get, if I'm using 2 packages per cup about half the time, so that'll take up 12, and then I'll use 1 for the, so it's let's see, so it's 6 cups and then 12, so it's 18 cups of coffee for $15. So it's pretty good, less than $1 a cup. So that, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, is the new Dave's Fave of episode 001. And yeah, give it a try if you're into coffee and, think you might want to tail back on the caffeine a little. All right, coming up next, we've got Spiritual Boot Camp, which is where I talk about some sort of, spiritual, metaphysical type practice that I have used in the past or am currently using, or just explore some sort of teaching, something like that. So stay tuned for that. I'll see you on the other side. Namaste.
Pray for connection, revel in affection. Namaste. Laugh at rejection, progress not perfection. Namaste.
Hello, and welcome back to the new Dayve Experiment, and welcome to Spiritual Boot Camp, where I talk about things that I have learned during my many moons here on planet Earth, spiritual practices. Sometimes we can get into religion, although I'm not a big religion guy. I'm more like, think of spirituality as sort of a connection to the universe as opposed to religion, which is sort of like, you're going through a middleman, and as they say, eliminate the middleman whenever possible. So I thought I would start this one off, since it's, the first one. I'd like to kind of share my worldview that I've, adopted after trial and error so many different ways. And obviously there's no one way for everybody. No religion or spiritual practice has all the answers, but the stuff that I'm doing now is, has checked out according to my, personal experience, pretty much. But again, I'm sort of like a Bruce Lee type person when it comes to spirituality. He, his form of fighting was Jeet Kune Do, which is like the way of no way. It really just depends on what's going on in your life. Whatever works for you, great. If being a Catholic
makes helps you to be a good person, whatever, great, or any other kind of religion, as long as it helps you to be a good person that loves yourself and others and treats people with kindness and doesn't get too bogged down in, the sense pleasures and ego satisfactions. That's okay in my book. So I just thought I'd like to share something that I've been experiencing my whole life, and when I got into this organization, it sort of confirmed things that I'd actually experienced personally. So the name of the organization I'm going to talk about today is called Science of Spirituality, SOS, or Sant Mat, SANTMAT, which means in Sanskrit, Hindi, the path of the Sants. And a Sant, it sounds like saint, but it's a little different. A Sant is someone who is still alive and can do all the go to the inner worlds, outer worlds, upper worlds, whatever you call it, and voluntarily would just whenever they want and commune with God or the essence of the universe, whatever you want to call it, and then just come on back to their body and go about their day. Whereas a saint is someone that has died, as far as I know. You have to die to become sainted, and they're not around anymore to share their wisdom with you, except in written form, if they left any sort of written record of what they went through. So I'd like to share this kind of roadmap chart of the universe, both the lower worlds, the physical world, and the non-physical worlds. And so here we go. Wait a minute. Let me get in the corner here. All right, so there's my corner, and here comes the chart. All right, so this is a chart that I got from this organization. So here we go. So again, this is the Sant Mat was started by actually a Muslim mystic back in the 1400s, and they have had a series of that's weird. All right, sorry, hang on a second. Oh, there I am. Okay. That's weird. Okay, well, anyway, I'll just put myself over here a little bit. So this chart is provided by Science of Spirituality, Sant Mat, and as I was saying, it is a, let's see, 600, it's about 600-year-old spiritual practice started by a Muslim mystic in the 1400s. And they've had a successive series of living masters, if you will, ever since then. It's not like, it's sort of like, all organizations have some sort of a spiritual leader, like the Pope, there's a living master. But the difference is that the Pope is, God's messenger on earth or whatever, but he's still, below the Christ figure, so Christianity, for example, is, says, oh, Christ was the guy and nobody's done it better than him ever since. So we're just going to follow his teachings. And I'll get into that later. There's a lot to be said about what people think is in the Bible, what the Bible is, etc. But, it goes Pope and Christ. The thing with this organization is that the living leader, I'm not saying he's Christ or anything, but he is the guy, he is in touch with, the universe, the lower and upper worlds, just like, Christ was, the leader of Sant Mat has, Christ consciousness and beyond, So anyway, let's get into it. The physical plane, as I was talking about earlier, there's different levels and they have different colors associated with them. In this system, it's a little different. Let me see here. Colors are a little different. Excuse me.
So in this system, it starts yellow in the Ganesh area. It's your rectum, then blue and Brahman, it's reproductive. Oh, that looks pretty green to me. Red is Vishnu, it's your navel. Bluish white is Shiva, that's your heart. White is your throat, or Shanti, radiance. Paramatma, behind your eyes, that's your third eye area. So that's how you connect to the universe with these different chakras, the different levels of the universe, at least in the lower worlds. Okay. So then when you move up the scale here, you're getting into, so this is called Pinda, that's the physical plane. Then you get into Landa, the astral plane, and the symbol of that is the 1,000-petaled lotus, and that's why the lotus is so predominant in Buddhism, because that's the symbol. That's kind of what you see if you do it right. Astral plane also, if you meditate correctly, you'll start to see stars, and it's the name of it of the leader. Each level has a sort of overseer. That's Sahasrar, and this is the level of the heavens and purgatories. You see stars, suns, and moons, and when you enter that realm, the predominant sound current is bells and a conch shell kind of sound. So that's, and then to get to the next level, you have to go through this tunnel, the Bunknal. So that's why churches and most Orthodox religions are so into lights and candles, at showing lights, putting up light displays at certain festivals or holidays, like in the Christian tradition. Christmas, they use a lot of lights, Christmas lights, and the star you put at the top of the tree. That's because this is the Christian heaven. Okay, this is the Islamic heaven. This is the base. When we talk about heaven, most humans think of this. We're just talking about the astral plane. As you'll see, as you can see, there are 1, 2, 3, 4. This is sort of the dividing line. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, or 7. Yeah. So there's 8 planes, not counting. Yeah. So without counting the physical plane. So it's 8. And most Orthodox religions say that heaven is just really level number 1. So moving on, we go into Brahmanda, the causal plane, the home of the mind, and what you see there is a red rising sun, and that's the leader of that. The overseer of that level or plane is Trikuti, and you see golden mountains of Mer, Sumer, and Kailash. Predominant sound current there is a thunder and drum. When you're there, you hear that sound. Third level, upper inner level, Par Brahm, the super causal, beyond the mind, full moon. You see a full moon exceeds 1,000 outer moons, so you see a lot of moons. The leader of that level is Daswan Dwar, and you see a pool of nectar, the Amritsar and the Mansarovar. Predominant sound current is sarangi or violin, and sitar, the harp-like stringed instrument, which is again why they're so into. That's why sitar is such a prominent instrument in Indian music, because you're getting really close to the dividing line between the lower worlds and the upper worlds. Then, if you want to go further, you have to enter and pass through the Mahasuna. It's the barrier region of darkness and silence. And then that leads you to the 4th plane, excuse me, And the sun that you see there exceeds the brightness of 100,000 of our suns. Leader of that level is Banwar Gufa. And you see when you get there, you'll see this rotating like a vortex or cave. And that's when you start to realize, like, oh, I'm a little micro version of God, as they say. Think of God as like an endless, eternal, excuse me, infinite ocean. So if you think of all of existence as an ocean, each living being is like a little drop of water in that ocean. So you finally realize, like, oh, I'm just a little drop of water. So it's like you're part of it. You're of it. You're in it. You're not separate. You have separate consciousness, but excuse me. It's all the same ocean. And the sound current you hear there is the sound of a flute, a plaintive melody of the flute. And actually, the reason, as I was saying earlier, the reason I embrace this belief system is because when I was in my early 20s, I did have an experience where I was sitting in my room in North Oakland. I was about to graduate from college. And I actually did have this sort of, crazy, wild, out-of-body experience. I did hear the thunder. And then I kind of went right to this part, the Mahasuna. I know what that feels like to know, that what it feels like to be in this infinite, velvety black region. And it is silent. But you do feel, even though I wasn't in my body anymore, it was like a point of consciousness. See this little guy here? But there was no white dot or anything. It was just me in this infinite, eternal, velvety darkness. It was infinitely close and infinitely far away. So you're transcending, three-dimensional space, or any dimensional space, really. And I heard this sound, this kind of whooshing, I heard the thunder. I have heard the flute sound before, but when I was here, I looked, I didn't have eyes, but I sensed something, and I looked up, quote unquote, to my right, and I did actually see this rotating thing. So it's pretty wild. And then as soon as I started to go towards it, I immediately came back into my body. So that was pretty wild. And it took me over 30 years to find this information. I just kept asking everybody, like, where was I? And so now I've known for quite a few years now that I was in the Mahasuna. Okay, so moving along, we have next the fifth plane. And this is the purely spiritual region where you are there's no physicality whatsoever. As you move through these planes, you start to, you're like, you're 100% physical here. You're 75% physical here. You're 50%. You're 25%. But as soon as you get up here, boom, no more physicality. Now we're in the fifth plane where you see trillions of suns and moons, or the light equal, excuse me, cannot equal the light that you see. And this is Sachkhand, the true home. The leader is Sachkhand. And Satpurusha is the supreme being. He who dwells in Sachkhand. Here, soul merges in God as a drop merges into the ocean. And oddly enough, the sound that you hear is bagpipes. Oh, and actually, I got that wrong. These are the actual names. I gotta have to do a little research about why these have different names. But so there you go. That's generally, even the most advanced spiritual people kind of top out here. Then if you really are like insanely spiritually advanced, you can go into these last three. So you got Allah, which is the sixth plane. It's the inconceivable region. A seventh plane is Agam, the ineffable region. And eighth and final plane is Anami, the nameless wonder region, where it's just, it's just silence, it's perfection. You're done, you know. So that is, they make a point of saying this is an approximation only. Obviously, there's different, many sub levels within each one, but this is the kind of overall structure of the universe, both physical and non-physical. So that's, I thought I'd just sort of give you like a primer of what reality is, I mean, there's a lot more than just this kind of typical heaven that we associate, or the concept of heaven that we associate is really, as you can see, it's just, you're just, again, you're just getting started, when you're in quote unquote heaven. So finally, I'll wrap this up by saying just a little tip here that I've learned, that it doesn't matter what religion you are, you can still be Christian and meditate. I recommend meditation because, just like with everything else, there's these different planes of existence, as I've been talking about. There are, there's physical world, emotional, mental, financial, social, and spiritual. And within the spiritual world, as we've just seen, there's 8 levels, or 9 if you include the physical. So there's a lot of different levels, and there's a lot to life, or a lot of parts of the pizza, the slices. And just like we need food for our physical body, we need love for our emotional body, needs, intellectual, some sort of stimulation, money, human contact. You need to nourish yourself in the spiritual realm too. You can't just go around just not watering that plant, and I'm not talking about prayer either, because prayer is more of it's a dualistic process. Like, you're saying, I'm this person or this being, and this God figure is outside of me, and I'm asking with my mind for this daddy, whatever, mommy figure out there to help me do stuff. But the spiritual perspective that I have come to adopt is that, again, we're a drop of water in the ocean. It's all the same thing. We're all just, there's a big ocean, we're all part of it. And if you want to do something in the ocean, then swim around and do it, So what meditation does is say, okay, I'm in the ocean. Now let's just check things out. Let's see what's going on. So as opposed to being on the outside looking in, with like prayer, you're kind of apart from something and kind of going, reaching out to get something from it. It's the opposite with meditation. You're on the inside looking out. You're just seeing, oh, what's going on? So here's what I suggest you do if you want to try meditation. It's pretty simple. You just close your eyes and you focus on a point that's kind of not exactly between your eyebrows, but a little bit up. And that's called the Tisra Til. It's sort of your third eye, the pineal gland. You might have heard of that. It's sort of, there's this thing in your brain. It's sort of like a second, it's like a third eye. It's really, you can see, but you don't see physical things. You see into the non-physical spiritual world. So you just close your eyes, focus on that point, and then all you have to do is repeat a word. And it could be any word that makes you think good thoughts, loving thoughts, or if you want to think about God or whatever you want to, just pick a word, because you want your mind, you want to have something for your mind to focus on, because your mind is, all over the place. They call it in spiritual practices your monkey mind. It's just jumping around like a monkey in the jungle. So you need to have something for your mind to focus on while you are
starting to, really look around you and see what's really there inside of you and outside of you. And that's typically called a mantra. There's a specific mantra that's given to initiates into Satman, which is 5 words, which correspond to different levels of, the main levels of existence. But you don't really need that. You can just use any word. You can say Jesus. You can say Muhammad. You can say your dog's name, your daughter's name, your son, just a word that has, positive connotations. So you just repeat that. You do it kind of quickly at first to kind of give your mind something to, grab onto, focus onto, so you don't start thinking about, I got to pay the bills, I got to go to work tomorrow, Yeah, and then over time you can kind of slow down because your mind will kind of relax and kind of accept the process. And then eventually you will start to, for lack of a better term, travel into these upper worlds. But again, it takes a while to really relax and get into it. So don't freak out or think you're, a spiritual failure if you haven't had some crazy, spiritual experience, when you do this the first few times or few hundred times. But it's nourishment. It's, it's literally, food for the soul, if you will. Soul food. So that's my first spiritual boot camp lesson. Went over the kind of like the basic structure of reality and how to start getting able to explore that reality, right? Because we're not just here to drive in cool cars and, have sex and eat food, which is fine, but again, it's just one piece of the puzzle. So anyway, that's Spiritual Boot Camp number 001. I hope it has been somewhat helpful, educational, enlightening, instructive. I don't know. Hopefully it's been a positive experience for you. And coming up, we're moving on, getting close to the end here. I'm going to do last one is called Visual Treasures, which is just me. It's one of my hobbies is taking pictures of inanimate objects that I come upon when I'm traveling about the world. And I just use my iPhone. I don't even really like fancy cameras. I just like kind of low rent camera images. It's the driver, not the screw behind the wheel. Is that how it goes? The nut behind the wheel. So that's coming up. And until next time, this is New Dave saying namaste. Stay tuned for a visual treasure.
Photographs of a secret world taken at my leisure in the city or the desert or anywhere else. I'm always hunting for visual treasure.
All right, here we go. Welcome to Visual Treasure, which is the last official segment of the new Dayve Experiment. And this segment is devoted to the pictures that I take when I'm out and about in the world. Sometimes it's an urban environment. Sometimes it's a nature environment, the desert, the forest, what have you. Sometimes it's even the suburbs. And I call them, appropriately enough, urban treasures, desert treasures, forest treasures, suburban treasures, wherever the, picture's taken. That's kind of how I discern which is which. And the idea is that I look for things that are little out of the way, little secret, little tableaus, if you will, just some weird little thing. I don't really like taking pictures of people. There's so many with social media now, everything is just like people's faces. And I don't know. I kind of like to kind of focus on just weird little things that nobody else notices, and try and make them, go from sublime to magical, or something like that. Because the fact that anything exists is a miracle. There shouldn't really be a universe if you study any kind of quantum physics or any kind of, cosmology, astrophysics, anything like that. The Big Bang should have just, created as much matter as antimatter. So it should have just canceled itself out. So the fact that anything exists is a miracle. So I try and find the little miraculous little things in the world around us that don't really get attention. And then I use I use an iPhone, and then I use a little editing software that they have in there to alter the image here and there, because I don't like to get too technical, but I like to have a little bit of effect on the image if there's something that I think could use a little juice. So without any further ado, here is the first one that I thought I would share. And took this. I was out and about. I was late at night in LA, and I guess I was walking in my car, and I saw this this little scene on the side of a building in downtown LA, which is pretty ivy free for the most part. So the fact there's ivy on this building, I thought was pretty interesting, and the fact that it was right next to this kind of big ass bell or something, some kind of alarm or something, that somebody had taken the time to paint. It kind of matches the ivy, this green little ring, and then this bright yellow thing also kind of weirdly matches the kind of glitter or the reflection coming off the leaves. And also, as I was saying, full disclosure, I did use some of the editing software to, bring out the colors more and, enhance the shadows and, just other kind of contrast, all kinds of stuff like that. And I think composition's important when you take a picture. So many people just take pictures. They don't really think about where the things are in the frame. And I like to kind of do the rule of threes. We have this grid and, three lines, 3 vertical lines, 3 horizontal lines forming this grid. And you try and focus, put the cool part of the picture in one of the intersections of those grid lines. And, just a little secret little world there at night all by itself. And I witnessed it and took a picture of it and brought it home with me. And now I'm sharing it with you. So that is Urban Treasure number 1 as far as the show is concerned. If I ever get around to cataloging all the pictures I've taken, that might change. And who knows, maybe I'll actually figure out how to set up some sort of system where you might want to buy one of these as a print or something. But for now, I'm just sort of, sharing the kind of stuff that I like to do when I'm just poking around in the world. And so that'll be it for the visual treasure. This is an urban treasure. I have desert treasures, forest treasures, suburban treasures. And if I ever got on the ocean, maybe I'll find an ocean treasure one of these days. Okay, so that's going to be the visual treasure segment, and I'll be back in a minute to kind of wrap up the show. I'll give you a little preview of coming attractions, and see you in a minute. Okay, we survived episode 1, or at least I did. I hope you did too. And so this is, I'm just going to keep doing them. Hopefully they'll get a little better, technically speaking. I've tried a bunch of different systems, Ecamm, Loom. I'm just, like I said earlier, the technical aspect of creating this kind of stuff is, it's not that hard, but it's still just a lot of weird button pushing that not a big fan of. But be that as it may, I'm going to keep doing it, and we'll see what happens, because I got a lot of stuff that I've, accumulated over the years. So I think some of it, hopefully most of it, will be of some entertainment, educational, enlightenment type value for you. So if it's not, sorry, I'm trying my best. So next time I'll get back into the Apkallu, get more, finish that part up.
in the Alien Almanac, and then we're going to have all the different segments, and it's, going to be one-man variety show, kind of a grab bag. Hopefully there'll be something in there that will float your boat. And I guess that's going to be about it for now. Thanks for watching. If you stuck around this long, you're my hero. So until the next time, Earthlings, this is New Dave wishing you a wonderful day or night, as the case may be. And until the next time, CHLUMU.
New day, he ain't nobody's master.